Hi, I'm David Butler.
I'm Emily Freeman.
And welcome. This is day 4 of our week-long Easter celebration.
This week we have been looking at Easter through the eyes of some of the people who were there and actually experienced it. And today, we are going to be looking at Easter through the eyes of Mary Magdalene, one of our most favorite.
Glad you're here. Everyone, this might be our favorite story from the whole Easter week. This morning when Mary comes to the tomb, Jesus' body has been in the tomb after the crucifixion. All the disciples have been just worried and crying, and she comes early in the morning, it says. One of my favorite Easter traditions is actually to wake up every Easter Sunday and read John chapter 20 with the rising of the sun because of this story.
I love that tradition so much. One of my favorite parts of this story is when we read in John chapter 20, when Jesus says to her, "Woman, why weepest thou? Woman, whom seekest thou?" And I love that in this moment when Mary comes, and we gain a really good understanding here of the condition of Mary's heart and her emotions, right? She's coming into this place and her heart is heavy, and she's weeping, and she's seeking for Jesus in that moment that is so dark and so sad for her. And what we're going to learn about Jesus is what we have learned about him over and over again through the scriptures, that he meets us where we are. He comes to us in the middle of our story, and he comes as what we need. Think about this for a minute. For Moses, he came as a pillar of fire. For Joshua, he came as the captain of the host. For Peter, he came as a lifeguard. For his mother, he came as a maker of wine. And for Mary, he came as a gardener. Have you ever wondered why he came for Mary as a gardener? We've thought a lot about that and the lesson that maybe is contained.
Yeah, think about what a gardener does. A gardener watches over and tends and cares for plants and brings about their growth. He does what he knows best. And that is exactly what he's going to do for Mary and all of the disciples, for what he has been doing and what he's going to do for the rest of his life. I love that she mistakes him for the gardener, because he will be a person who will watch over her with that kind of tender care.
He will tend to her now just the way as he did for her before. And we love Mary's story in the beginning.
The fact that Mary is the first witness of the resurrection is so powerful. When you first meet Mary back in Luke 8, you find out that she was a woman who'd been possessed by 7 evil spirits. And do you remember that man that Jesus meets at the Gadarenes? Mm-hmm. We know what a demonic man is like. They're just wild and crazy. And we imagine that maybe she was like that. Mm-hmm. And so for that to be the beginning of her story, and then for the end of her story to be her there as the first witness of the resurrected Lord, one-on-one in the garden, is so beautiful. And this isn't as easy to figure out today, but this would have been really powerful for first century Christians, that it was a woman who was the first one. They were not regarded as well. They didn't hold the cultural status that they do today. So the fact that Jesus appears first to a woman is so powerful. And really the witnesses in the story of women as witnesses of Jesus throughout the scripture are some of the most poignant parts.
Oh, they really are. And I love that this witness of Mary, she is going to go back and witness to all the apostles of what she has seen, was a powerful witness born by a woman. And we want you to think about this. There are women in your life who have powerful testimonies of Jesus Christ. And who are they? When my oldest son, Caleb, served his mission in Serbia, he came home and told us about a tradition that has become one of our very most favorite Easter traditions. In Serbia, many, many years ago, there was a time when you couldn't believe in Jesus Christ. It was not allowed. But there was one night a year when all the Christians would come together. And on that evening, they would dye Easter eggs, and they would dye them red. And while they were dyeing the Easter eggs, it was the job of the grandmother to bear witness of Jesus Christ to all of her children and grandchildren. And that was the tradition. It's what happened every single year. And then the next morning they would wake up and those red Easter eggs would be made, and they would go from door to door and they would knock on the door, and the person would say when they opened, "He is risen." And the person on the other side of the door would say, "He is risen indeed." And they would trade these red eggs. And that egg would stay there on the mantle for a year as a witness of that family's testimony of Jesus Christ.
So our lesson and invitation from Mary Magdalene on day number 4 is this. On the first Easter, Mary becomes the first witness of the resurrection of the risen Lord. And Jesus actually asks her, invites her to go and share her witness to the rest of the disciples.
On this day, the invitation is actually part of the tradition. So let us explain to you how the tradition works first, and then we will give you the invitation. What we like to do on this night is actually dye red Easter eggs. So you're going to want to get some eggs at the store. I will give you a hint. If you buy the brown eggs, the red will be deeper red. And then it will surprise you, but where the red comes from is actually onion skins from a yellow onion. So you're going to want to purchase some yellow onions. You need the skins. For a deep red, if you're doing a dozen eggs, you're going to want 9 onions worth of skins is what it will take. And you're going to boil these in water, and then not the whole onion, just the skin in water. And then you're going to let that cool. And then you're going to put the eggs in, and you're going to boil the eggs just like you normally do. And then these eggs actually need to sit overnight in that. And then the next day when you get them out, you'll let them dry. And then when they're all done drying, you want to rub them with olive oil. That's what makes them shiny, and it just makes the color deeper. And here comes the invitation. In our family, after we have dyed all of our Easter eggs, and we make one for every child in our family, and we have a dinner where we set the eggs at every single place, and then we invite over one of our grandmothers. And her job, as we start that dinner, it's one of my favorite parts of Easter, is to bear her testimony of Jesus Christ. And it's what we remember as we each set these eggs on our mantle. And so we're going to give you that same invitation. Maybe you could invite a wise woman over to your house. It might be your grandma. It might be someone who ministers for your family. Just someone who you love their testimony of Jesus Christ, and let them be part of your Easter celebration. I promise you it will be a night your family will never forget.
That's it for day number 4 and our lesson with Mary Magdalene. We'll see you back tomorrow for our lesson on day number 5, the 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. So we'll see you then.